So next we will be discussing about another important agency which repeatedly appears in the newspaper, that is Enforcement Directorate. So in the 30 years only one question they are asked related to Enforcement Directorate. Okay. Again we have to understand at the superficial level. So ED, it is generally called as ED. Enforcement Directorate is a multidisciplinary law enforcement and economic intelligence agency in India. Okay. Multidiscipline means it is not confined to one field but multiple fields. But with respect to which all aspects we will see. Economic intelligence agency. So I will just give one example of economic intelligence. Now if some person is trying to evade the taxes, it means he is not paying the taxes and he is using some kind of mechanisms to escape the same. So at that time ED will try to identify such kind of activities. Okay, it is an example of economic intelligence, economic intelligence. So it is an economic intelligence agency and also multidisciplinary law enforcement agency. Again these are generic, not important from prelims point of view. It functions under the Department of Revenue, Ministry of Finance. So this point is very important. So we understood in the context of National Investigation Agency that it works under Home Ministry. CBI, Ministry of Personnel. Okay, it was created under the Ministry of Personnel. Here Department of Revenue, Ministry of Finance. So primary objective to enforce economic laws and fight financial crimes. Okay, so it does not take cases related to what? Terrorism and all. It is related, it will take cases related to economic laws. Okay. For example, it may be taxation or any other things. Okay. And fight financial crimes. Now someone has taken money from India and he has deposited in some other country. So again it's an example of a financial crime. So illegally he has earned in India and he has deposited in some other country. It's an example of a financial crime. So it will also try to fight such financial crimes. So established in 1956, initially known as Enforcement Unit under the Department of Economic Affairs. Again historical background is not that much important. Later renamed as Enforcement Directorate in 1957. So if you look at the present year, okay, 2025. So what are the approximate years? 57, 67 approximately, so close to 68 years. Okay. So if it is 68 years, not that much important. If the year is close to 75 or 50, then it becomes important from exam point of view. Initially handled violations under Foreign Exchange Regulation Act 1947, later FERA 1973. Okay, so initially handled violations under FERA Act with liberalization 1991. So later on in the economics we will be discussing about the various phases like LPG, liberalization, privatization and globalization. And repeal of FERA, the Foreign Exchange Management Act came into force. So here Enforcement Directorate, it handles the cases related to FEMA, important one. Post 2002, ED also enforces Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. So this is a very important act. So as we saw the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act in the context of National Investigation Agency. Similarly here, this Prevention of Money Laundering Act, it repeatedly appears in the newspaper. Okay. So money laundering means illegally you have earned money and you have taken it to what other place, that is called as money laundering. Okay. Again we will be discussing about those examples also later on. So here we shall understand that it enforces Foreign Exchange Management Act and it also enforces Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So both these acts are important. Legal framework. So two major acts, it enforces two major acts. One is Foreign Exchange Management Act, another one is Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So this information, it repeatedly appears in the newspaper, so it is important. Even though they are not asked a question till now, only one question they asked, so this information is important. A civil law to regulate foreign exchange transactions and maintain external trade balance. So these external trade balance and all we will be discussing in economics. Facilitating external trade and payments, promoting orderly development and maintenance of forex market. So if there is any suspicious activity which has taken place in the forex market, so such cases will be handled by Enforcement Directorate. So one more here, what we will focus here is, this is a civil law, this is a criminal law. This is a criminal law. So to prevent and control money laundering and confiscate property derived from the crime. If someone is involved in illegally generating the income and after that income, let us assume he has purchased a property. So Enforcement Directorate, what it will do, it will investigate, it will check whether money laundering has taken place. If the money laundering has taken place, there is a provision for confiscating. So this provision is important. Whether Enforcement Directorate has the power to confiscate the property, means taking forcefully their property under the control of ED, under the control of government. So this provision exists, important. So ED investigates, attaches and confiscates the proceeds of crime under this act. So whatever the money they have earned because of their involvement in such kind of crime, and because of that whatever the income they have earned, so that can be taken by the Enforcement Directorate, that is, that money can be taken under the control of the government. So again, this detailed information is not important. Headquarters is in New Delhi, headed by Director of Enforcement. In case of CBI, who is the head? Director. In case of NIA, Director General. Here it is Director of Enforcement will be the head. So appointing authority, central government will appoint. This detailed question not important. So apart from the Delhi, we also have regional offices. Okay, that information is important, but this detailed information not important. So staff composition, it consists of IPS officers. It consists of IRS officers as well. It means the investigation, whatever they are doing, it does not consist of only police forces. It also consists of forces belonging to other services as well. Okay, other services as well. So FEMA, PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So investigates suspected violations of foreign exchange laws. If someone is involved in the violation of the Foreign Exchange Management Act, so they will investigate that person under this act. Conducts investigations into money laundering and attachment of proceeds of crime. Okay. So attachment means, when we say attachment, the person who is holding that property, he will not be able to sell that property. Okay. Sell that property, that is the meaning of attachment. Impose penalties for violations. So can they impose penalties? Yes, they can impose penalties. So this is an important term. Okay. Files prosecution complaints before special courts. So here they will file the case between the court and court will impose the penalty. So they are not directly going to impose penalty under this act, PMLA act, court will impose the penalty. Ensure compliance with the RBI and Forex rules. So what it will try to ensure here is, so people who are involved in this Forex market and all, so they should follow the rules and regulations of RBI and Forex properly. If they are not following properly, it will try to ensure that those rules are followed. Conduct search, seizure, attachment and arrest operations. It can even arrest as well under PMLA. Okay, under PMLA. Just last one, not important, leave it. Okay. Collaborates with Financial Intelligence Unit. So internationally, there is an organization called as Financial Intelligence Unit. It also collaborates with it. Again, not that important because very rarely it appears in the newspaper. Interpol, we have seen. So repeatedly it appears in the newspaper. So with respect to financial related matters, if it can collaborate with Interpol. Okay. Next, World Customs Organization and FATF. So we have discussed about Financial Action Task Force, if you remember. So this is a very important organization. So about this organization we have discussed while discussing about the international affairs related bodies. Okay, FATF. So it collaborates with Interpol. It collaborates with FATF. Okay, FATF. It is a nodal agency for implementing United Nations Security Council resolutions related to terror financing. This is important. Okay. So we have discussed about United Nations Security Council. Okay. So it's a specialized agency of UN or organ of UN? Yes, Security Council. It's a main organ of UN. So it brings many resolutions, okay, related to defense matters. But whenever it brings a resolution related to terror related financing, so those are dealt by whom in India? Enforcement Directorate. Okay, Enforcement Directorate. So if you can recall the provisions of FATF, FATF deals with what? Terrorism related funding and money laundering. Okay, money laundering. So extradition requests involving financial crimes. So extradition, this is a term which appears in the newspaper. For example, someone has committed a crime in India and he has gone to other country, he is staying in some other country. Now we will request that that person be sent to India. For example, Vijay Mallya is present in some other country, UK, let's assume. Now we will make a request. That request is called as extradition request. That is, he has committed a crime here, so now he is present in your country, you send him back to our country. So that is called as extradition request. Extradition request. Key challenges. Okay. So these are all generic things. Allegations of political misuse and selective targeting. So overlapping jurisdiction. Now sometimes there is no clear demarcation that these cases can be investigated only by CBI and not by ED. These cases can be investigated only by ED and not by CBI. So there is this called as overlapping jurisdiction with CBI, Income Tax Department. So this is what key challenge. Key challenge. Pending cases backlog and resource constraints. So as the number of people working in the ED are very less, but the cases are more. Hence the pending cases are, the number of cases pending have increased. So judiciary scrutiny over PMLA's stringent provisions, example arrest bail conditions. So this we will be discussing separately. Need for greater transparency and accountability. So when it comes to functioning of ED, there should be more transparency and they should be more accountable. So these are all generic points which can be used in mains. Recent reforms or judicial developments. So again these points can be quoted in mains, not all points. If you are able to recall one point also, that would be sufficient. And rather than taking this as a source, I will urge you to take the newspaper content as a source whenever we are generating the mains answers. So Supreme Court in 2022 upheld most provisions of the PMLA, giving wide powers to Enforcement Directorate. Now someone challenged which act? Prevention of Money Laundering Act in Supreme Court, that the provisions are very stringent. But Supreme Court said that these provisions are correct. So when the Supreme Court said that these provisions are correct, it means Enforcement Directorate became more powerful. Okay, more powerful. So when you are writing about the economic, what kind of role the judiciary plays, okay, in arresting the crime and all. So such examples can be quoted in links. Amendments to PMLA 19 and 2023 strengthened ED's power of search, seizure and property attachment. So what are the amendments to PMLA? So we will be discussing separately. Okay. What are the amendments to PMLA recently, that we have to discuss separately. Supreme Court directed transparency in ED summons and arrests. So what do we understand by summons? Okay, calling the person to appear in front of the ED. So calls for parliamentary oversight to prevent misuse. So some have suggested that parliamentary oversight to prevent misuse. So what do we understand by parliamentary oversight? Parliament should have the power to question Enforcement Directorate. Okay. Now how Parliament can question the executive? Similarly, they are saying that Parliament should have some kind of control over the ED. Again, these are all generic points, we can just ignore it. So why it is significant? So vital for India's fight against economic crimes, black money and terror financing. So Enforcement Directorate, it plays an important role in fighting against the economic crimes. Okay. So for example, money laundering. So black money and whatever the money that has been laundered, that will be used to finance the terrorism related activities. So cumulatively it plays a multiple role in addressing multiple things. It addresses economic crimes, it addresses the problems related to black money and it addresses problems related to terror financing. Enhances financial integrity and ensures compliance with international obligations like FATF. Okay. So protects India's economic sovereignty. So again these are all generic things. So here Enforcement Directorate at the superficial level we saw. So important things that we are supposed to understand here is, it works under which ministry? Ministry of Finance. To be specific, which department? Ministry of Revenue. So that information is important. It is involved in the enforcement of which laws? Foreign Exchange Management Act and next Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So does it have the power of search? Does it have the power of arrest? Does it have the power of seizure? Yes. Does it, can it confiscate? Yes. So these are the superficial level of information that we are going to retain from the claims point of view. Okay. So this is about Enforcement Directorate.